we're going to get started. We're recording this, so it'll be a web link for your colleagues if they couldn't make it in. And I'm gonna just roll right in. We've done quite a series of webinars so far, and this is one we're now going a little deeper. We've already, some of you have been on with Stephane when we did one of our first webinars since COVID-19, shelter in place began, and it was great to get an overview of Anderson Valley and kind of a nice, broad brushstrokes and some kind of details into some things. But now we're going a little deeper into these wonderful soils and terroir that all make the wine so special. And with that, I'm going to turn over to you, Brad.
Yeah,
I know you got something to say.
I do have something to say because I'm excited about this session, albeit short and much shorter than my experience.
Time out real quick. We have an echo, big time echo coming from someone and somewhere. It could be a virtual classroom that someone's got, which is okay. Stephane, I know my kids in class right now downstairs. Could be somewhere else, but I'm going to mute when I'm not talking to help, and we'll see. And now I'll pass it back.
Okay. So does this sound better, Jeff? Just give it a thumbs up. Okay. Stephane, you want to mute for a second? Is it better now? Better now. Okay. So it might be from the Vivier household. Yep. Tua colpa, tua colpa. So good morning again. I just, this is an exciting session for me because my first experience with soil and getting dirty was many moons ago, and I was in Friuli on a buying trip. And I was at a producer who, for 3 hours, all he did was talk about soil. 3 hours. And at that point in time, I was a neophyte, new to the business, and kind of like my eyes were like popping out of my head what this young, very exciting young Italian winemaker was talking about for 3 hours of soil. And the producer, who I'm going to mention his old label, which was called Masut, M-A-S-U-T. Now, if anyone remembers or knows, in the Q&A, if you want to type in what that producer is called today, that could be kind of interesting if anyone knows. This is a producer in Isonzo, a part of Friuli, which I later then, Jeff and I, when we traveled together in Friuli, got to experience a different type of soil from Isonzo, which was in the Carso region with Edicante, whereby you maybe had 1.5 to 2 inches of actually loam and soil, and the rest of it was bedrock. And they used to put dynamite in the rock to like break it up in order to plant these vines. And that was pretty exciting. Anyway, back to that Italian producer. The winemaker's name was a guy named Gianfranco Gallo. And the first wine that I imported from him had Gallo on the label. And there was another company that actually sued him, this tiny little producer in Isonzo, for using that name, even though it was his name, Gianfranco Gallo. So we changed the winery name to Masut, and we used that for a little while. And then I broke away and we didn't work with him anymore. And his wines today, which are very well respected and well known in Friuli and from Isonzo, is called, anyone? It's called Vie di Roman, Vie di Roman, a really high quality, great producer. That was my first experience with soil. So from there, it moved on to very many other various things. And then I had the luxury of working with a winery called La Vista, Cantina La Vista. The Institute of San Michele did a study for 9 years, I think it was, that they dug a hole in every vineyard in Trentino that worked with Cantina Sociale, with the cooperative there. And I imported some wines from a winery called La Vis, which was a cantina. And they did this study, and my friend Mario Falcetti actually was part of that study at San Michele. They would tell the vineyard owner that, oh, you've got Pinot Grigio planted here, but your soil is better suited for Terroir, or is better suited for Gewürztraminer. And if you want us to buy your grapes, you need to replant your rootstock and the vine for us to be able to buy that fruit from you. And we'll help you subsidize it. That was the next step in my soil discovery and experience. And then I started talking with this gentleman, Stephane Vivier, who opened my eyes to so many other opportunities with soil. So this is really exciting. I didn't mean to take up so much time, but I thought that that was kind of an interesting progression. And I don't know how many of you out there have had that experience, and I hope you have. But this is going to be real exciting. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to El Jefe, Jeffrey Meisel, to take it on.
Well, actually, yeah. Thank you, Brad. Always love a little Italian story to start the day. And now we've got to turn to the Burgundian in the room. Stephane, so we've been talking since, I've been with the company since September 2016, about a year and a half or so after you got started with this project in early 2015. And maybe before we go into that, sort of presentation mode, give us the little intro, give us the feelings you had when you saw this property, you understood what this property offered.
First, sorry for the echo earlier. I have my young 6 years old doing a class upstairs. I must be.
No apology needed.
Anderson Valley, the Tanbark Mill vineyards and Long Meadow Ranch. My first visit was in April, I think April 13 or 15 of 2015 with Chris Hall. And when I set foot there after this couple hours drive from Napa, it's the most striking things happening is like first the energy of the land. It's a really quiet place. It's really peaceful there. It doesn't take long to recharge batteries when you go out there during harvest or any time. And there's really a feeling about this place right when I set foot. And already at the time, and the whole were already negotiating for the property and had already farmed the property organically since the winter of 2014, the late winter of 2014. And we can see here an out view, and you can see like it's rolling hills, different exposure. And the most striking part is that the vineyards really look like it's part of the landscape. It's really integrated there. It feels like it's been here for centuries or decades. I mean, really, it's mature, it's calm. There's nothing really out of place. And so, before going into like deeper into soil or rootstock and Meisel selections and climate, and at the time I already had made wine from Anderson Valley 20 plus years ago when I first came to California as an intern in 1999, and when I started to be an assistant winemaker in 2001 in the Russian River Valley, we were making wine from a neighbor vineyard called Savoy Vineyards. And so I was familiar with Anderson Valley already. I've been there, but I've never been on that property. And it's really unique property in Anderson Valley as it is 70 acres and it has everything out there. So we have our Pinot Gris, our Rosé vineyards, Rosé of Pinot Noir vineyards, and then we have Chardonnay and Pinot Noir vineyards. And so it's pretty unique in the sense that it's all estate and everything is estate food, estate grown. And you can see a weather station here. And we go as we're going up towards the Felice and the Chardonnay blocks. And right after the trees here, we're going to go into the Pinot soil series and our lighter Pinot Noirs. And so I thought there's something like really incredible to see. And so what I'm going to present today is actually ideas, a different approach. I'm going to be taking a totally different route than Brad's first contact with soil. I'm not going to talk for 3 hours about soils. I'm not sure I could, but also I think that my whole views here is going to be a lot more holistic and a lot more global. I don't think you can take, especially with a mature ranch as the 10 Bark Mill ranch, you can take anything out of the equation. And we're going to talk about something that at Long Meadow Ranch we call full circle farming. It's a circle. So it's difficult to take something out of the circle without talking about all the other pieces. And so that's my approach here. Of course, soil is where it starts, and that's where the vine grows in, gets in first. So you need to have a very good understanding of the soil before planting a vineyard. I'm from Burgundy, born and raised in Burgundy, in a small village called Meloise, surrounded by vineyards. I started to work with elder winemaker. Never been to school, so I have this. And then I studied a bunch of master's degree in biochemistry and enology and viticulture, and this means that I have an upbringing that combined a really pragmatic approach but also a very scientific approach of things. And I think you have to be in balance between the two to be able to be a good interpret of where you are. It's going a bit too fast here, Jeff.
Yeah.
We need to go back to the agenda here. And so I told you a little bit about 10 Bark Mill. It's 70 acres vineyard planted. It's a little bit bigger, about a tad over 100 acres, and 70 are planted. And it's in Anderson Valley, so about 2 hours northwest of San Francisco. And we're going to, instead of talking like 100% focused soil, we're going to talk about this really big word, terroir. Try to a little bit go step by step with that word, and towards going very close to the different type of soil we have. There are really nuanced difference, but those nuanced difference in the soil make the wines really totally different and apart, and that's what really fascinating about this, and fascinates me because I grew up with this in Burgundy. When you are 1 foot in Chambol Musigny Les Amoureuses and you have another foot in the Chambol Musigny village, and you're thinking like, there's something here. So there must be something under us that explains a bit more about everything. So first I will start with a quote by a really famous French journalist, probably one of the most, he was a great journalist in France. His name is Pierre Veilleté. And Jeff, you have to, so Pierre Veilleté was his journalist. He was born in the Landes. Landes is right south of Bordeaux. And he grew up in wine country, and he did a lot of journalism in southeast of France, southwest of France, around Bordeaux, and really famous. And he wrote this book in the late 1990s, I believe, and it was called The Wine and Lesson of Things. And he was really an incredible connoisseur of wine, and he said something that goes like this: there are no predefined vineyards, there is only the stubbornness of civilization. So we hear the human, and we have to understand what's out there and all the conditions that are around us but we have to work really, really hard to get it. And so my story about going out there in the vineyard with Chris Hall and seeing a potential, seeing some energy, feeling that energy is something that you get from your neighbors, from my elders, from my parents, from my brother and my mentors, Laurent Pillot, Fernand Pillot, Aubert de Villaine, these guys have been teaching me, and you get feelings like this, but the feelings doesn't do anything if you don't do a lot of hard work. And so that's why we're going to go through. One more thing about not a disclaimer, because I'd like to hope and to hope that we're going to meet again with all of you guys, Jeff and Brad and all of you today, maybe in like 5 years, and we're already 5 years in, and there's still a lot of hard work. We're going to talk about it, and a lot of the information I'm going to give you today are actually towards like a few years before we acquire the property. We have not done yet updated analysis on the soil. So that's going to be really interesting, because we already see some difference, and we're going to do those analyses in the next few years. Brad.
That's a great comment, Stephane, because the team and been talking to their customers as of when we did our first Anderson Valley event 4 weeks or plus ago, actually 5. We talked about how we've seen the progression in the quality of the wines coming out of this property. And so you said, it's funny because you said in 5 years, we'll take a look and see where we are. But even today, 5 years into the project, with the first vintage, we can see with the rosé, when the 19 is about to be released, and you taste the progression, and those of you that have followed along from the 15, the 16, the 17, the 18, and now the 19 rosé, the progression in quality, the progression in Stephane's understanding of the vineyards and what it gives has been dramatic. And so I can only hope and expect in another 5 years for another same type of dramatic quality increase that you've brought to this great property, Stephane.
I'm too. I love this place so much. My family loves this place, and when you take your family to a ranch like this, it's when you want to go to the vineyards and you want to take your family with you. It means something pretty special. So here we are, Anderson Valley, east to west. I'm going to try to get the. So we have the Pacific Ocean here. So really key here. That's the town of Mendocino, and we have a lot of. So here, this corridor here is a pretty dense redwood forest, and then we're getting into Anderson Valley on the western side. It's what we call the deep end, and we right here.
Jeff, if you click again, Jeff.
Here we go. Is a Lemar, and so it's a small valley, maybe 2,500 acres. The average size of a property in Anderson Valley is about 20, or ours is 70. So people that are making about the same amount of wine than us are sourcing grapes from different places. So it's really different. We have this really that estate definition, almost clos definition, that a little bit more Burgundian in the sense that we all under one roof, one clos in Anderson Valley. Very important is the river. We're going to talk about it on the next slide. But this is the Anderson Valley. Unlike Sonoma and Napa, Anderson Valley goes west to east, east to west. Sonoma and Napa are going north-south pretty much. So just really, I wanted to quickly get to the what happened a long time ago, because when you talk about soil, you have to talk a little bit of geology, and it will make me, talking about it will make me think about my mother. She's very keen in my upbringing in wine because she is a PhD in geology and biology, and she told me all those things that we tend to forget, and why we're here, and what happened. So about 30 million years ago. So you have here 50 miles, 50 square miles, and it's something very special in terms of tectonic and in terms of geology that happened in Northern California. On the coast of Northern California, there is what we call a triple junction. So there's three different plates, three different tectonic plates that collided about 30 million years ago. Is Gorda, the Pacific, and the North American plate. Excuse my French. It's hard. And so when they collided, the Gorda plate went down under the North American plate. The Pacific plate pushed upward, northward, the Gorda plate. And what happened is that we got some lifts. So we have one here that Jeff or Brad put in, but we have also, it created some bumps. And so we have the bump. What made the bump? The bumps, they move the river. And so the rivers are really important for the ecology of the soil in anywhere really in the world. So we have one bump here, one here, and that will be pretty much Anderson Valley here, AD, Anderson Valley. And here on the other side, we will have the Maricamas and the Russian River watershed, Russian River Valley watershed. So you have the Russian River going here, and you have the Hill River going there. And so those tectonic plates really created those bumps, especially when the Gorda plate retracted a little bit, created those bumps that were filled by water. And so we're here in Anderson Valley, and of vineyards will be located around here. So just to give you a little bit of a little bit of background about what happened when we were not there. So our ranch, pretty complex, but also, as I said, it's unique in the sense it's all together. We have 16 different blocks of Pinot Noir, and 7 different blocks of, no, I cannot count anymore. It's 8 different blocks of Chardonnay. Now we have only 6. And two little block of Pinot Gris, great Pinot Gris actually, right down the river. It's a yellow color here. Down below is the Navarro River. Jeff is annotating here. And you see all these trees. We're going to see some pictures. And it's surrounded by, on one side, by the very magical place called the Handy Woods. So the fauna there's a lot of redwood trees. There's a lot of life going out there. And anywhere redwood trees are growing, the soils are really cold. We're going to talk about that. It's really, really important for the soils in Anderson Valley because they stay cool and they allow the wine to have this cool feel at the same time. So there's no science behind that, but definitely help a really slow season, slow ripening of the grapes to have cool soils. So the big question, huge question, oh my goodness, you have I don't know how many winemakers we are now in this, on planet Earth, but there must be like as many definition of terroir as there are winemakers. So let's try to be simple here. So climate, soils, flora. And so the terroir will be the intersection of climate, soil, terrain, and tradition. And the tradition is really the human part of it, and that's winemaking, and that's us. But climate, soil, and terrain is what we cannot control at the beginning, and that's what we have to work with. And that's why we have to work so hard. Like Pierre Veite was saying, there's no predestined vineyards. There's only us being very stubborn and believing that we can produce something great. So this is key. And then we have something right next door that applies to Long Meadow Ranch. And Long Meadow Ranch is very unique as well, in a sense that they created their own kind of style of farming. It's organic. It's 100% organic, and everything is organic, and they call it the full circle farming. And we start with a few hundred island cattle, Scotchman's Island cattle, a restaurant, a wonderful farm-to-table restaurant in St. Helena in the Napa Valley. Right above the restaurant, on the other side of the valley, there are a few incredible 120 years old olives, a ranch in Rutherford for Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Sauvignon, and you call it chicken and sheep and turkey. And the Anderson Valley, that's what we're going to focus on today. And a few acres, I think like maybe up to 20 acres now, maybe 15, 20 acres of organic vegetable and farms, plus the other estates in the Maricamas, where we have a small winery here, Pictures. And the full circle farming is really, all the in and the out are just all really together. There's no, we're linking everything. And
I'll chime in here quickly. For simplistic purposes, you know, as Stephane was explaining, the full circle farming, it's something that a lot of farms are employing today. We are using it, have been using it for quite a long time. And basically it's where every part of the farm contributes to another part of the farm. So we raise Scottish Highland cattle for beef and lamb. We have bees for honey, chicken for egg, organic fruit and vegetables. And the simplest aspect is that all the fruits and vegetables that we grow, the first quality we'll serve in the restaurant or sell at the farmer's market. The second quality we'll use for soups or garnishes. The third quality we'll serve to the chickens, who will then eat the organic fruits and vegetables. That will then create the organic eggs that we will serve in the restaurant. And the waste from the farming and the manures from the chicken and the waste from the restaurant goes back into our composting program and gets regenerated and recycled back into the soil. So that's the quickest and shortest way of explaining that, Stephane.
Thank you, Brad. And on top of that, so full circle farming is a term, as explained by Brad, it's less used because it's really typical and unique to Long Meadow Ranch. A lot of people now are talking about here in Northern California and Oregon about regenerative farming. Pardon my French once more. And biodynamy. My mentor, Aubert de Villaine, has been doing a lot of work on this. Aubert tells us all the time, biodynamy is one next step, but what's really important is being organic. And so we're going to talk a lot about what that means. Topsoil regeneration, improving the water cycle, enhancing the ecosystem services, supporting biosequestration. So meaning like we capture and store the greenhouse gas CO2 and enhance the biological process in a sense that we enhance the flora around the vineyards. This way we also increase the resilience to climate change, which is like a question that comes all the time, and strengthening the vitality of the soil of the farm. So this way, on top of that, we increase the yield. So we're making the farm more productive and more sustainable. So here we're breaking down the terroir into the climate. So we have in Anderson Valley a lot of marine influence from the ocean breeze, ocean fog in the morning. It's very foggy in the morning. It's also really windy. And we have a huge temperature shift. We're going to come back to that. The terrain at Tan Bark Mill in Anderson Valley is mostly east facing. And we're not that high. We are right by the river, so the lowest point is right above the river, around 50 feet, and goes all the way to 120 feet. And now I'm going to jump to the tradition, because we're going to talk a lot about soils, and we talked about soils last. Usually I finish with tradition, but tradition is us, the winemaker. I think my daughter must have gone on the winemaker and with my pen here, and she added some hair. I did not, my wife gave me a haircut 2 weeks ago, but that was me like 2 weeks ago, before my wife gave me a haircut, tasting wines in my yellow shirt. But so in some other, we joke, I'm a lazy winemaker. I like to think a lot about what I'm just explaining you. The energy, the feel, the climate, the terrain, and then all the way down to the soil. Very understand the soil. Where are the roots? What are the definition of what is the character? What are the characteristics of the soil, so that it can define into wine? I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, my soil is like 30% this, 30% that," and this like it's very like capturing and really it doesn't mean anything if you don't really have you don't need to know a lot, but know at least a little bit of what it gives to your wine, and what are the best characteristic of that it gives to your wine, so that you can improve on that, and then you can enhance those characteristics to make your wines better. So minimal intervention is really something that is, of course, it's very broad, but I try not to do too much. Aubert de Villaine always told me when I was 23, 24 years old, starting at High de Villaine, he said, like, you know, the most difficult in life, it's not only in winemaking, in wine growing, the most difficult in life is to be simple. And this is that's something I try to achieve with my craft, is to make things that are really complex and really concentrated and deep and elegant and fun, but do it in a simple way and in a relaxed way, and have fun with it. So I think that to have this calm approach about saying and about life and having kids and having a great family is helping as well. But it's all linked together. And now we're going to talk about the soil. So rock and mineral deposit and density. And I know many of you went to Soil 101, but let's stay on this slide here for just one more second, because I want to talk about this. This is the most important to understand in soil. You have to understand that soil is about size. The smaller it is, usually the better it is. So we're going to go like from large boulders, boulder, and then cobble, and then coarse gravel, medium gravel, and then fine gravel, and then we added a little bit more sand into it, and the sand is going to be very coarse. That's where like the upper part of the beach was, and then medium gravel, and then medium sand, fine sand, and then we're going to go into we're getting into the silt, the silt part, and then when you get around this, you're starting to have some very good interaction with your roots. So silt again, it's all about the size of the particles, and the size of the particles are really what define your soil. And then at the bottom of all this is clay. So what we have in Anderson Valley, and we have three nuanced different type of loam, and they all gravelly loam, fine loam, which have slightly different level of sand into them, and so silt at some places. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Here you go. The climate. So start with the climate. So we're in the northern part of Northern California, and we are a region 1B. So one of the cooler, 1A is the coolest. That will be Champagne and the northern part of Germany now, including England and Denmark and some part of Sweden. But Japan, actually, I have a project in Japan in Hokkaido, and that's a 1A. We in region 1B in Anderson Valley, so around 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit degree days, give or take, depending on how hot the vintage are going to be. So
Meaning
here we are.
that's the average annual accumulation of temperature.
The degree days, yes. The degree days are.
That would be a pretty hot day, Stephane, 2,500 degree day. That would be, we'd be kind of like on Mars, right? You're muted. You're muted.
Over the whole growing season, of course.
Yeah.
So we have a great picture here, a little blurry, but the best we could do today, showing from above the fog line in Anderson Valley. So proximity of the ocean brings a lot of breeze, but also a marine layer that's cooling and making the season go pretty slow. We want that for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. We want slow and steady. And here are a few pictures of the vineyards. We talked about the redwood trees and how important they are for our ranch. We are surrounded on one side with a handy park, and the soils are really cold. Again, right here is a handy on top of my fingers there. So, and we're going to have some more pictures too. With the next one is like we have some big shift of temperature in Anderson Valley. 40 or 50 degrees is not unusual. And it's also has a lot to do with it determines also a very slow ripening and having those above 100 days between bloom and harvest. And that when you don't qualify vineyards by soil, you qualified a lot of the vineyards and wine region by the number of days between bloom and harvest. And usually when you're above 100 and you're not 28, 30 bricks, of course, when you're above 100 and you're like at a balance chemistry and you don't have to manipulate at the winery, then you're in great shape. You are in the top-notch vineyards. And so at Tan Bark Mill, we usually between 95 days for Pinot Noir vineyards, Pinot Noir Rosé vineyards, and we go all the way to 110, 115 days for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, which is, yep.
Stephane, what other climates in California, if you know, are similar to Anderson Valley as far as the coolness?
The regions that are going into degree days in 1B, Carneros, Santa Cruz Mountain, Santa Maria, some part of the Santa Rita Hills. Must forget some, but that gives you, and of course 1B, most of the Chardonnay and Pinot Noir in Oregon, of course, are qualifying here. Thank you. And it's silly to, for me it's silly, but Oregon, California, it's like northern part, and it's all linked in my opinion. The flora part of the second part of the terroir. So here, it's too bad, guys, because I'm going there the most often of all of you. But what's missing here today is the smell. When you walk those vineyards, the smell is absolutely incredible. It's just really fragrant, and that's missing here. But there's a lot of diversity. You see a lot of flowers, mostly attracting some insects that are going to be predators and really helping us balancing everything. And I can tell you that a lot of our neighbors are just looking at us 5 years ago. It's like, you're going to grow this like organically. and so, like, it's not going to work. You're going to have a lot of pests, and we are actually one of the cleanest vineyard in the region. Really healthy crop. The Pennyroyal is something that's really, really unique to Anderson Valley. It's this really minty weed. It has a minty, kind of a minty flavors, and believe me, it's a hard concept for a lot of people, but it's so fragrant, it's so intense when you walk there in Anderson Valley that there's no doubt that some of it just goes into the wine, and so that's a really big part there. Actually, we're very good friend with our neighbors from Pennyroyal Farm, Sarah Bennett, and she's the daughter of the Navarro founders and Navarro Estate founders, and they just actually kitty corner from 10 Bark Mill, LMR 10 Bark Mill, and they have a wonderful farm where they grow goats, and so they have a lot of Pennyroyal out there. So, and we talked about the redwood trees, but regenerative farming, you know, that's regenerative farming, the full circle farming. So everything goes together. Really quickly here on the terrain, we have an east-facing slope. Again, the presence of the redwood trees, they're majestic, and they're always like, it's never too warm out there. This is probably the steepest picture you can get from the vineyards. Here we have like 35–40% slope, and towards a more gentle slope at the beginning. We're looking at block 12 Pinot Noir here, right before harvest. And on the right here is block 11 on Pinot Long, and right above some Chardonnay, which has like about 20% slope. The soil. So here we go. No good soil talk without a good hole. So the Felice, more gray, grayish, grayish loam, very fine. Has a lot of little rock. What do I do here? Excuse me, guys. Here we go. So a lot of little rocks mixed in. Very dark grayish on top, and then brown clay loam right under. By 3 and 5 feet. You have it's more brown in color, with gravelly layers, but actually we have a lot of silt that our Chardonnay are just thriving on. It's beautiful, beautiful place for growing Chardonnay. Actually, when I was there, like the first time, I was like looking at some statistics, and I made the first Chardonnay from Long Meadow Ranch in Anderson Valley, and I was scratching my head, so like, why is there not more Chardonnay in Anderson Valley? Because you have some really incredible minerality, but also opulence, elegance, very floral and mineral character in the wine, and extremely layered and long finish. It's a great place to grow Chardonnay. So here, the next one will be the Pinot. So it's right above the Felice. Here we're going to show you on the map right next. But so see the difference of color here with the Pinot, with a much darker brown loam. Also very well drained. Both the Felice and Pinot are very well drained soil. So it's really brown in character, a little bit less of the rocks are mixed in. And then the next picture will be the Perry Gulch, which have some dark brown too, but much more yellow in color. And we call that the olive brown soil. So you see that here, in texture, pretty similar. A little bit more rocks in the Chardonnay, little bit less rock with the Pinot and Périgord, but three loam that you're going to see are really similar in aspect, but you already can see here on pictures very different as well. And we're talking about yards from each other. The Pinot and Felice are just touching, and Périgord is right above by about 50 yards. Tradition, culture, minimal intervention, making nature do what it does best, doing everything in balance, not only with wine growing and winemaking, but also with our life. Just, you know, it's just wine, and wine is an ingredient. It's an ingredient for better time, for more fun, for getting together. It makes our life better. We don't need it. It makes our life a lot better. And when we have it, it's just for the table. It's just for being together, which is something we're missing right now. Here we go. We have again a picture of the vineyards, and we're going to jump into the soil map because it's overlapping the vineyards here. And you see the Felice at the bottom, 140 in a yellow color. The Felice loam, that's where most of the Chardonnays are grown. So we're making a Chardonnay, a special Chardonnay from this, right above the Navarro River, marked in red here. And 193 right above is the Pinot. That was a lot the darker of the loam. And 192 is the Périgord, the lighter of the loam, but also the steepest. And Périgord, we're going to talk a lot about that. Is a less, it's not a very well drained soil. The other two are really well drained. The Périgord really struggle to drain. So it's nice that we have it on a very steep slope. So it helps that drainage, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that profile too. It really explained a lot the taste of the wine, the way the soils are constructed there. And we're getting to the nitty-gritty now, and we have the Felice. We're starting with the Chardonnay. So on the left, I'm not going to go too much in detail over the horizon. So AP, A, AC, C1, C2, C3 are the horizon that geologists have classified the different, slightly different type of loam. Fine loam for the Felice, very fine loam, very well drained. And we're going to focus on the graph in the middle here with organic matter, pH, clay, and sand. So we have like about 15 of those, and I thought that those were the 4 that explain the most about the qualitative aspect of the wine.
So let me just clarify, because when you said 15, there were 15 graphs you had to choose.
Yeah, those we test we're testing a lot of other things to qualify those those soils. That's the 4 that are the most important for, in my opinion, of course, for the quality of the wine. Like a geologist will get at me and say like, no, you cannot, but he will take hours. And I said I didn't want to spend 3 hours talking about every single graph. So what really, I can't get my my pen to work right now.
Okay. I can assist you.
So the organic matter here in the Felice is really important. Naturally, it has actually quite a bit of organic matter. It's on the lower part of the vineyard, so that's where there is more organic matter. It goes fairly deep already, 3 feet deep.
Lower, you mean shorter? It's the organic matter is higher, closer to the surface.
When it goes deep, when you go you're going to compare to the other to the Pinot Noir graphs, it goes, yeah, here we go all the way to 3 feet. Here you have a pretty good content of organic matter, and then it drops dramatically. So it's really great to establish a vineyard. It's really great to establish balance and energy, which is great for Chardonnay. So we have good growing, and then now we had the life of the vines, where you want the roots to get into the 100, 120, 140 centimeters depths, so that we slow them down. We slow the energy down to get the roots where there's a little bit less energy. pH is really important. Analyzes those soils. The pH of the soil is really important. pH really establish how much nutrients your roots are able to capture. So between 6 and 7 here for Feliz, it's 7 is neutral, pH neutral, and 6 is still really good for capturing nutrients for the vineyards. Under 6 is considered like a strongly acidic, and it's a lot more complicated, and we're going to talk about that with the Périgulch. But here for the Feliz, no problem, straight line. The clay, so it's moderate amount of clay, but the clay is at low to moderate level, but it's good because it's going to determine some tension into your wine. Too much clay will bring some volume into your wine. We love clay for Pinot Noir. There's a lot of clay in the vineyards in Meursault, and they do very well because they bring some opulence to the wine. So we have some here. However, not having too much here determines some minerality in the wine. We talked about the organic matter. It's really important because the rooting system went fairly deep fairly quickly, and then now we're having it like way down there, so that it's as I said, slowing down. But the deeper your roots, of course, the more complexity and the more layering of flavors. It's rocky. It's more rock. We saw that on the picture before. So the rocky part, the gravel and those little rock, allows the roots to go a little bit further down. It also helps the drainage. So it's nice to have a well-fractured soil because the soil is very aerated. There's a lot of aeration, a lot of oxygen. So it's really important. Soil aeration is really important. And that's something we do in organic farming and with biodynamic and with regenerative farming and all those type of farming. Aeration of the soil is what all the winemakers, wine growers, viticulturists are going to talk to you about, is to have very breathing soil that enhance life. And when you come to Long Meadow Ranch, Anderson Valley, you're going to see like it's alive. It's really alive. And we love you to come there, because when you look at the property right next door, it's a lot less alive. And it's very interesting to see the difference of farming. So the attributes of the wine, the Feliz, very fresh, vibrant, makes very mineral wines. They have a lot of floral character, really great long finish. They need some time. They will age really extremely well, and really balanced chemistry. I mean, having alcohol between 13.5 and 14, a great acidity still at those nice level of alcohol that gives you ample opulence, but the acidity will give you tension and vertical and give you a lot of I like tension. To explain tension, I explained that to my daughter the other day. I used a rubber band. If the rubber band is not is loose, it's really flat like this, and tension is like having the rubber band very tight. And I think that's how I want my Chardonnays. I want them like long like this and high like the Eiffel Tower. versus a big flat building. Now to the Pinot Noir, the Pinot. So here we have a lot less organic matter. And a really good pH for, I mean, normal pH for nutrients capture. And we have a little bit more clay in this wine, in these soils. So the clay will define a little bit more opulence. The clay is pretty high, pretty and goes pretty deep. So well drained. The clay range is between 15 and 35%. It has a maximum at around 3 feet. And the sand is increasing with, that's very important. The sand is increasing as when you go down in the profile, there's more and more sand. And so sand means more silt as well. So very fine silt character, and the Pinot Noir really does really extremely well there. So more sand, more clay, wines that are really elegant, have a lot of finesse. They require more time than the Périgord. They have a lot of minerality. Really reasonable alcohol usually at those wines. So you get grapes, which is great for Pinot, and in general it's great for any wine. But you get this good density, good depth into the wine and complexity at a very low alcohol, and it's pretty good acidity for Pinot Noir. So we're on a back slope here, very fine loam. It brings a lot of lightness to wine. So we have actually on those Pinot loam, that's where we have the most Burgundian Meisel selections. It's very interesting that they do well, of course, in those conditions. But it's a really interesting micro terroir that I can wait to. Actually, it's also our youngest vines that we have there. So they're not everything else about 25, 26 years old. Those vines are only the oldest, I mean, between 11 and 20 years for the Pinot. So we're using some nice Meisel, nice Burgundian Meisel on 1616 Couder rootstock.
Stephane, while you're just talking about that, we got a question from our friend in Pennsylvania who has said that he knows he's talked your ear off a while back. Realized he had another question, which is when talking about the Meisel selection and clonal type for Pinot, is there a clone or is there something you look for in the stems you include? Or do you just make you're adding fully lignified stems? You're muted. You're muted, Stephane. Wish I could answer that question for you, Jeff.
There you go, I'm back.
There we go. Did you hear the question?
So the Meisel selection and the stem inclusion, correct?
Correct. You know, what do you look for? Is there a clonal selection, or is it just looking at the lignified stems?
It's a long answer. Again, here it's being able to live there first. It's very important to be there during the growing season and know what it is. On warmer vintage, as a rule of thumb, on a warmer vintage, there will be a little bit more stem inclusion. They're first a little bit riper, but also you want the stem to be, for me, the stem are just a tool to bring texture to wine, but also to bring foundation to wine. So I build on this for Chardonnay, for example. We don't have the stem. We direct press. the foundation of the wine are the acidity. For the Pinot Noir, it's the phenolics. And it's always interesting to use between 10 to, at times, 40% stem inclusion, especially with vineyards that are not, I mean, they are like mature, but they're not the oldest vineyards. So I will not go 100% just yet. But it adds to the texture of the wine. So, and then after, it's, as you said, we need to come back. And as you said, we still had Pinot. As you said, the lignification and the ripeness is really something that that's one of the intervention the winemaker does. Really, it's a really subjective choice. We have to put them in your mouth. It's not very pleasant, but if they go in your mouth, then you can put them in your tank, and just try to read the vintage in terms of what you want, what kind of freshness and how much freshness you want to bring to wine. So the stem is a long topic. I'm a true believer that it's really important. There's some vineyards that we're doing now less and less stem. For example, at Heide Villaine, with Guillaume Boudet now as a winemaker, we're doing less and less stem. But it's maybe also because the vineyards are a little bit younger. And then at Tembark Mill, we're doing more and more stem because the roots are going deeper. We're going to get a lot riper stems, and they just integrate into the wines much quicker as well.
So Stephane, just we're bumping up, but we've bumped up the hour here, and I appreciate if you all
already.
Yeah, I mean, you really could 3 hours, like I said, on soil, but just for that, for those of you who have to go, we appreciate your time. Those that you can still stick around and stay, Stephane, finish up. Not that much more left here, and any questions that you might have. So, Stephane, if you go through the Perry Gulch, and you can bang through the wines a little bit, just be on the wines. And
so, Perry Gulch is at the end, and it's a very interesting profile. And you can see the organic matter decreasing really, really fast. And it's really steep as well. So those are the steepest slopes. And it's also the most poorly drained vineyards. And it's actually also very acidic. So you can see here around like as 20 centimeters all the way to 120 centimeters, the acid is around 5. So there's amendment. So the acidity, the pH being very low, just imparting the capture of calcium and magnesium, for example, but also that will help all the nutrients capture for the plant. So those vines, when we took over the vineyards in 2015, were in fairly bad shape and really low producers and really struggling, and almost like young vineyards that they looked old already, but as struggling as trying to grow more. So what we've been doing with organic farming is that, and we don't have those numbers just yet, but we're going to lower down the organic matter. We lowering down the organic matter all the way to the 60, 80, and 100. So you want to have the organic matter just lowered down by doing this regenerative farming, this full circle farming.
So basically what you're saying, Stephane, is that because we've been farming this organically now for years, the more we farm this organically, the deeper that organic matter on the scale will show more depth organic.
Yeah, it is a goal. Yeah, it is a goal that to get this organic matter down so that you get more strength into the vine. Then when we get that strength, then we can let go on the organic matter and let go, and then just hope for the roots to get even deeper. So we are the first stage here, getting that organic matter lower so that we increase the capture. We've been also helping with the pH of the soil, so adding some calcium, magnesium into the drip irrigation when we can in the early spring, so that we help those vines to capture their nutrients. And but when you look at the clay content and the sand content, we have a very clayey soil there. We have a perfect, like these two graphs are incredible. It's a perfect site for Pinot Noir. If we get especially the organic matter and the pH and the vines to capture those nutrients, we'll be in a great shape. So the wines are already extraordinary. They because of the clay content, they're more opulent. They're bigger wines, and you can see also it shows that with a slightly higher pH and lower acidity. And they're very low vigor, and they're really struggling still. So you have a lot of concentration, a lot of depth of character in this wine. Yeah, it's a work in progress there, and it's already great. And I can't wait that we do those. We could do some more holes and analyze again, and we'll see that I'm sure that organic matter is already down there, and we're already working so hard with our tilling and with our fertigation, organic fertigation procedures. So I love them because it's as I was saying, I wanted to conclude on that. I know that we already passed our time, but one of the questions I get all the time is, will you compare with Burgundy? And there's not much to compare with Burgundy, except that we have some of the same stock in terms of the Pinot Noir we're using. It's Burgundian material. But in terms of geology, we don't have limestone, which is one of the big difference, but also the climate and the viticulture and the people are different. So we're very different. But what is very similar here is that only 30 yards apart, we're going to have really incredibly different wines that are at extreme high quality, very elegant, very balanced wine, but from two different micro terroirs that are only like 50 yards apart. And that's the similarity with Burgundy, where you say like every 100 meters there's a big fracture in the ground, and every 25 meters there's a small one, and that's where you stand in Les Amoureuses, and then Chambol-Musigny with the other foot, and then you have two different wine. One is like an excellent wine, but the other one that's extraordinary.
There's a question we have on Kevin Schaefer. Do wines made with stems gain color as they age? I heard winemakers in person.
I'm trying not to unmute myself because it's hard for me to unmute me. So the question is about a color with the stem inclusion. It's something that, of course, you have to balance here. With stem inclusion, we always have a slightly lighter color. Coming from Burgundy, where it's a wine region where you always struggle about color. It's always something, it's always in the mind of winemaker to be able to extract enough color. For you Pinot Noir, here in California, we have such huge shift of temperature between night and day. So the anthocyanins, those molecules that are conducting the color, they are produced during those cold nights, and we have plenty of them. So it's not something that I really factor in the equation. I don't really think that it has a huge impact at the table. And of course, yes, the other part of the question, with time, with age, the color is going to reduce even a little bit more.
Great, thank you. Well, that was great, Stephane and Brad. Thank you so much. You've enlightened me. You've enlightened our audience, I'm sure. And
all done under 3 hours.
Exactly. And this presentation will be a web link by end of day or the latest tomorrow morning, we'll be sharing it with you. And you can share it with people in your professional community. We encourage that. We also will save the presentation to a PDF, so at least we'll have a PDF version without Stephane's words. It's not nearly as robust, but it will be available. And really, Stephane, in these 4 years since the wines came to market, and 5 years since we've launched this, I've learned, I know Brian has learned, and we've watched you learn about this place. And that's the beauty, I think, of wine and winemaking and viticulture, is the path we go on and how we learn along the way. Because it's a wonderful path, and it's enjoyable, and it's fun. And again, as you said, I can't wait to share all of this with all of you out there when you can come visit or we visit you.
Yeah, that's when I'm going to spend not only 3 hours with you guys, but like the whole day.
And we'll be drinking.
And most importantly, I'd like to finish that and thank you guys, you, Brad and Jeff, you're the team as well. But also I don't want to forget that I'm only one piece. And there's a fantastic team we have in the vineyard there in Anderson Valley and in St. Helena with Joe Hardin and Garrett Buckland. And people that really understand these life cycles and are really just having this great perspective on those ranch and able to apply those techniques and making really my life so easy, making the wine really, because we have incredible fruit. And so I don't want to go away without thanking their viticulture team, their farming team, and their really super hard work, because as Pierre Veite was saying, it's the stubbornness of civilization. It's not the stubbornness of the winemaker. It's teamwork, it's together, and so it makes for great discussion and for great interaction. We have a gentleman in Anderson Valley, his name is Paul Rooney, and he planted that vineyard, and it was really important for us to have him be our foreman in Anderson Valley, and he's back now, and each time we meet him in the vineyard, man, it's like the smile face to face up to here. He's so happy to see those vines he planted 20 plus years ago thriving, and it's important.
Well, I'm glad that all the great vineyard managers and workers, consultants can continue to keep it being busy stuff. I can only put a little bit more energy into winemaking, other levels that might come. Don't keep it the way you're doing, the way Aubert said, because what you're producing from these vineyards are spectacular. We appreciate all you're doing for us.
Oh, no worries. It's so fun.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Day, and we'll see you soon.
Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye. Stay safe. Bye.